All right. So what we have to look at now is another question on group accounts, and this time around we are looking at a more complicated question. Okay. So we're looking at question 5. So if you look at the question bank with you, see that question 5 has to do with, that's what I'm currently sharing on the screen. Now, question 5 include preference share dividends of the subsidiary, not just the ordinary share, preference share dividend, and also share premium. Earlier on, I shared something on the basic rules that you need to follow when you are preparing consolidation. This is like a matrix that shows how you treat the different line items of the net asset of the subsidiary. Now, for the preference share capital, okay, for the preference share capital, you take the, when you are computing the NCI, right? So the preference share capital is taken at the date of consolidation. And then for the cost of control as well, we take it at the date of consolidation. The ordinary share capital is at the date of consolidation, the same thing for the cost of control. The share premium, retained earnings, and other reserves, all right? For share premium is also at the date of consolidation. So this is actually the date of consolidation and not the date of acquisition. So the date of consolidation, retained earnings too, the date of consolidation for the NCIs, so their date of consolidation, while for the cost of controls, they are the date of acquisition. All right. So you will not really be able to understand this now. But as we solve questions, I will be pinpointing what I mean by this matrix here, by this box. All right, so let's take a look at question 5. Okay, so we'll go straight to the requirement. The requirement says that you are required to prepare the consolidated balance sheet of Arno Limited and its subsidiaries as at 30th of June 2005. Okay, assuming that accumulated impairment losses, okay, assuming, so this is assuming that the accumulated impairment losses are valued at 5,000 naira. All right, so we go straight to open the computation. All right, so this is what we have here. Now, the first thing we are going to do here is to bring up the group structure. Okay, so we're going to work out the group structure. All right, so we know that Arno Insuli. So we do the group structure for both the ordinary share capital and the preference share capital. So the share of Arno Insuli, we know that is 60%. So that is 60%, automatically the non-controlling interest will be 40%. Then for the preference share capital, Arno Insuli is 20%. Then the NCI is 100% minus 20%, and that's 80%. All right. Now note that it is the acquisition of more than 50% of the ordinary share capital, okay, that gives Arno a controlling interest and not preference share capital. So controlling interest is not earned by acquisition of more than 50% of the preference share capital. It is the ordinary share capital, which gives the parent company the voting rights. Okay. All right. So now what we are going to work on next is the post-acquisition reserves. The post what? The post-acquisition reserves. Now, this is where the table I gave to you earlier on comes in handy. All right, so if I take out this one, so basically what we just did there, the first thing we did here, as here, is just the group structure. So in the group structure, you are telling us what is the percentage holdings of Arno Insuli and what is the NCI for the ordinary share capital. And for the preference share capital, what's the percentage holdings of Aruna in Sule, and what's the NCI. So basically, that's just what we did there in the group structure. Then we come down to the computation of the post-acquisition reserves. All right, this place is the what? The post-acquisition reserves. All right, let me indicate it here. So this is post. So the calculation here is the post-acquisition. So this is where we do our post-acquisition reserves. Okay. So for the post-acquisition reserves, basically, we are having two reserves here in the balance sheet of the subsidiary, and that is share premium and retained earnings. Share premium is 9,000 at the date of consolidation, and retained earnings is 80,000 also at the date of consolidation. All right. So what you're simply going to do is to put in your share premium at the date of consolidation. So at the date of consolidation, the share premium is 9,000 naira for the subsidiary. All right. And then the retained earnings at the date of consolidation, this is the balance sheet date, is 80,000. So we'll fix that in. Next is to look at those values at the date of acquisition. So remember that we just have two reserves, two things that constitute reserves in this case. The share premium and the what? The share premium and the retained earnings. All right. So we come to the date of acquisition. So at the date of acquisition, we were told in the question, if you look at the question, if you refer back to the question, so the question 5. So the question says, on 30th June, Aruna Limited acquired 60% of the ordinary share capital and 20% of the preference share capital of Sule Limited for 95,000 naira and 15,000 naira respectively. Okay, at that date, Sule Limited profit or loss account balance was 50,000. So at the date of acquisition, it means that the pre-acquisition reserves was what? 50,000 naira. So all you need to do is to come here, the date of acquisition, pre-acquisition reserves, just type in or write the 50,000 naira. Then here, share premium at the date of acquisition. How much is that? The share premium is 9,000 naira. So just have 9,000 naira. All right. So what this means is that there's no movement in share premium. You can see at the date of acquisition, it is 9,000. At the date of consolidation, it is 9,000. Okay, of course, you know that the date of acquisition comes before the date of consolidation. So there's no movement in the share premium, but there is a movement in retained earnings because at the date of acquisition, we have it to be 50,000, and at the date of consolidation, we have it to be 30,000. All right. So what you then do here is to get the difference between the share premium at the date of consolidation minus the share premium at the date of acquisition. And then whatever figure you have there, you are going to multiply it by the percentage holdings of Aruna in Sule for the ordinary share capital, not the preference share capital. All right, so please take note of that. For the share premium, it has to be for the ordinary share capital. So what I'm going to pick is this 60%. So I'll multiply the difference by 60%, and then it gives me 0. All right. So the next thing is to look at your retained earnings. So your retained earnings is also simple. For you to get the post-acquisition retained earnings, and simply the retained earnings at the date of consolidation minus the retained earnings at the date of acquisition. And then you multiply this by the percentage holdings of Aruna in Sule, which is 60%. So once you do that, you get 18%. So all you need to do now It's just to add up these two figures. So just add up these two figures. We have 18,000 naira. So that is it. So it then means your post-acquisition reserves to be consolidated is 18,000 naira. Meanwhile, when you are preparing, unlike what we did before, when we had only one tax. So unlike what we did before when we had only one reserves, in this case now, we're having two reserves, which is profit or loss and share premium. So in the consolidation schedule, we are going to create two different columns. One column for share premium and then one column for profit or loss. Right? So we move down to the consolidation schedule. Okay. In the consolidation schedule, of course, the cost of control, the percentage holdings of Aruna Usule is divided into the holdings in the ordinary share capital and the preference share capital. For the ordinary share capital, we said it is 60%, and for the um, preference share capital, we said it is what? It is 20%. So in that case, what it then means is that the non-controlling interest, okay, the non-controlling interest is in the ratio of what? Is in the ratio of 40%. It's in the ratio of 40% and what? And 80%. Okay, not ratio is actually 40% and 80%. So what it means that 40% for ordinary share capital, okay, and then 80% for preference share capital. So it's not a ratio, it's the non-controlling interest percentage, please. All right, so that's what we get. Now, what we then do next is to state the net assets of the subsidiary. So you can see the net assets of the subsidiary are all the line items that we've stated here. So we just take the net assets of the subsidiary. And then for the ordinary share capital, of course, you know what we do. We apply the cost of control percentage. So the cost of control percentage for the ordinary share capital, the holdings of Aruna Insule is 60%. So we multiply the ordinary share capital at the date of consolidation. Now, what I was telling you here in this table, this is where it comes in handy. So what we are saying here is that for the cost of control, the ordinary share capital you're going to pick is the one at the date of consolidation. And that's what we have applied here. So we have picked the ordinary share capital at the date of consolidation and we multiply it by the cost of control, which is 60%. So the same thing goes for the share premium. Okay. So for the share premium is at the date of consolidation, okay, multiplied by the cost of control, which is the 60%. Okay. So for profit or loss, so what we did for profit or loss is to pick the result at the date of acquisition, and then we multiply it by the cost of control, just as we did in the last example as well. So you add up everything, and then you have your net assets acquired. So remember, always make reference to this. The date of acquisition for the NCI, that's the share premium, and then the dates. Sorry, this is supposed to be the date of consolidation. I'm saying that I'm going to change it. Let me see if I can change that right away. Okay. All right. So I have the correct position here. So what I'm going to do is I'm quickly going to change that to reflect. Okay. So I'm changing That's right away. Okay, so that's done. So for the share premium, it's the NCI is for at the date of consolidation. Same thing with retained earnings and other reserves. So basically for all reserves, okay, the NCI will be at the date of consolidation, while the cost of control will be at the date of acquisition. All right. So that's what we have done here. So for the share premium, what we applied here is to the date of consolidation. So you can see share premium, what we applied here, so what we should apply here for share premium should be to the date of acquisition. And that's an error there. So I'm going to change this to the date of acquisition. So what we're applying on the share premium for the cost of control is at the date of acquisition. Okay, so that gives you 5.4. And then you have your profit or loss also at the date of acquisition. So the key is that whatever you are going to use to determine goodwill, all these reserves, okay, must be at the date of acquisition. It must be at the date of acquisition. Okay. Yeah, they must all be at the date, except for the ordinary share capital and preferred share capital, which are at the date of consolidation. But for the reserves must be the pre-acquisition reserves, which is the reserves at the date of acquisition. Okay, so that's the key thing to just note, and that's where the major difference is coming from. As you can see that for the purpose of determining goodwill and determining that under the cost of control, all the reserves we considered are at the date of acquisition, except for NCI, when we did it at the date of consolidation. Okay, but for the preference share capital and ordinary share capital, both the NCI and the cost of control are at the date of consolidation. So we should take note of that. These ones are at the date of acquisition, at the date of acquisition. But for the NCI, they are at the date of consolidation. All right, so we have the one for the ordinary share capital and then for the preference share capital. So for the preference share capital, we just applied, I don't know, holdings in Sule, which is 20%, and apply it on the preference share value at the date of consolidation. Remember, at the date of consolidation. So we add up all of this and then we add up all of this. Now you pick the cost of investment. We have been told in the question what the cost of investment is. We are told that for the ordinary share capital is 95,000. Preference share capital is 15,000. So we included that here, 95 and 15, and then we got the goodwill on acquisition. So then, now what we now do next is this goodwill of 7,000 naira attributable to preference share capital will have to be transferred here to ordinary share capital. Okay, because ultimately it is we are making reference to the ordinary share capital for the purpose of determining the goodwill and not the preference share capital, ordinary share capital, because that is what gives the parent company a controlling interest. So we move this here and then we add up these two to give us 12,600. Now we are told in the question that there is an impairment loss. There's an accumulated impairment loss of 5,000. So the accumulated impairment loss, okay, will reduce the goodwill value, and then it will reduce the goodwill value and bring down the goodwill value to 76. So the carrying value of goodwill becomes 7,600. This impairment loss as well will immediately be charged to the consolidated P&L. So you can see we reduce 12,600 by 5,000 to have a carrying value of 76. And then immediately we transfer this 5,000 to the consolidated profit or loss. The goodwill arrived at on the preference share capital is moved to the ordinary share capital. It's moved to the ordinary share capital. It's moved to the ordinary share. It's moved to the ordinary share capital. And then we now have Aruno's reserves of 150. So this 150 is the reserves of R&O only. Okay, so adding up everything, we have a consolidated reserves of 163. And then for the share premium as well, we have the share premium to be 25,000. That's the share premium of the parents alone. Okay, so once you add that up, of course, you know that there's no movement in the share premium. So this is the total consolidated reserves. That is 188, and then we have the NCI to be 103. Okay, so with this now, we can prepare our consolidated statement of financial position. Just as we did with the earlier question, okay, these ones are line items, so we just add them up line by line. Yeah, we add them up line by line, and then we have the net assets. Okay, so this is the net asset position. The consolidated reserves, that is what we have gotten here, which is this. All right, and then consolidated the share premium. Okay, consolidated share premium is 25,000. Then we have the consolidated reserves 63, and then we have the equity attributable to owners of the parent. So by adding up all of this, we have the equity attributable to owners of the parent to be 388. So the NCI is 103. So when you add 388 to 103, you have 491. So with this, we have a balanced position. All right. So this is the treatment for the case where we have preference share capital when the parent company is acquiring preference share capital of the subsidiary in addition to acquisition of the ordinary share capital. And we have said that it is the ordinary share capital that gives the parent company control over the subsidiary companies. And it's on the basis of that that we consolidate. All right. And then when we are determining the goodwill on consolidation, what we do is to transfer the goodwill on the preference share capital to the ordinary share capital to arrive at the total goodwill. All right, so you can see like here we transferred the 7,000 to the ordinary share capital, and then we had a total of 12,600. All right, so what we then do was to reduce this goodwill of 12,600 by the impairment loss to arrive at the carrying amount. Now, also in the consolidated schedule, we had to separate the two reserves that we have, the POL and the share premium. And then we got the post-acquisition reserves for each of them individually and added them up. So altogether, that gave us our consolidated reserves. Okay. Also noteworthy is the non-controlling interest. So the non-controlling interest for the OSC and for the PSC, that's the ordinary share capital and the preference share capital, were both calculated. And then we included those ones here. And then we gave a golden rule for this. We said that the golden rule is to follow these steps where you have where is that again? So where you have your preference share capital for the NCI is at the date of consolidation. Okay, same thing with the OSC at the date of consolidation, and also cost of control. They are all at the date of consolidation. But for the reserves for NCI are at the date of consolidation, and reserves for COC, which is the cost of control, the basis of which you determine goodwill, are at the date of acquisition. All right, so basically that's just it. So remember the golden rule again. I need to emphasize that for this, where you have reserves, so for all your reserves, okay, you have the date of consolidation, you have the date of acquisition. So for all your reserves, okay, all your reserves, what you are picking for the purpose of, so here is either we are talking about the cost of control or we are talking about the NCI. So for all your reserves, This is cost of control, COC. Okay. So for all your reserves, what you are going to do is, for the purpose of determining goodwill, are you getting me now? It is the reserves at the date of acquisition that you are going to use. The reserves at the date of acquisition. But for NCI, it is the reserves at the date of consolidation. Then for your preference share capital and your ordinary share capital, this one is straightforward. It is the reserves, sorry, it is the preference share capital value at the date of consolidation. So when you are talking about the cost of control, you pick it at the date of consolidation, and for NCI as well, you pick it at the date of consolidation. So basically, this is the golden rule, and it is also what we have emphasized here. All right, it's also what we have emphasized here. So thank you very much for listening. Also note that we also said here that the goodwill that you get, the goodwill on preference share capital, the goodwill on preference share capital will be transferred, okay, to ordinary share capital for the purpose of determining the what? The total goodwill, okay? For the purpose of determining the total goodwill. And then this goodwill, you subject it to what? To annual impairment. You subject this goodwill to annual impairment test. You subject it to annual impairment test. So what happens is that if it is impaired, we are going to do two things. We are going to debit your consolidated reserves, and then you are going to credit your goodwill with the impairment loss. So you do this with the what? Impairment, with the impairment loss. Okay, so let's look at the second part of the question. So for the second part of the question, we have the question as this. Let me quickly go to question. So that's question 6. So question 6 says that required compute the pre-acquisition reserves for consolidation purposes at the end of 2004. The issued share capital of YP PLC is 1 million. Is 1 million divided into ordinary shares of 1 naira each. OB PLC made the following acquisitions. Sorry, that was. So OB PLC made the following acquisition of shares in piecemeal in YP PLC as detailed below. So we are told to compute the acquisition reserves if the parent has an intention to gain control. So two things are involved here. When you are doing piecemeal acquisition, two things are involved. It's either the parent has an intention to gain control, or the parent has no intention to gain control. Now, if the parent has an intention to gain control, let's go back to the Excel calculation. Now, if the parent has an intention to gain control, so let's say for this one is intention to gain. So for this, the parent has an intention to gain controlling interest. So for this, the parent has an intention to gain controlling interest. While for this, the parent has no intention to gain controlling interest. Okay. Now, if the parent has an intention to gain controlling interest, you start calculating pre-acquisition reserves once the percentage holdings of the parent in the subsidiary is 20% or more. Okay, but for this, we start calculating the pre-acquisition reserves when the percentage holdings of the parent in the subsidiary is more than 50%, meaning that when control actually exists, because there is no intention to gain control. But here, there's an intention to gain control. So, what we are told in the question, what we are told in the question is that we should work out the pre-acquisition reserves in both instances. Okay, we should work out the pre-acquisition reserves in both instances. So let's begin the process. Okay, so the first thing we are going to do is to rewrite this table to show the cumulative numbers of shares. Okay, so here we have the cumulative. Okay, so the first one here is this. Okay, pardon me, because this is actually an Excel table, so it's giving it an automatic drop down. So here we're going to pick, sorry, that's not the numbers of cumulative numbers of shares. So the first thing is to add up all of this. So if you add up all of that, you have this to be 800. Yeah, so all of that is 800. So we get the percentage first. Okay, so we get the percentage here. So what's the total? So the total shares for YP based on the question is 1 million. So we have to start the calculation. So if you divide the numbers of shares acquired here, divide it by 1 million. So what do you have? You have this to be 6%, right? So we copy this downwards, and then what do? We convert to percentage. Okay. So this is the first thing that we do. Now the next thing is for us to now get the cumulative percentage. So for the cumulative percentage, this becomes, yeah, so automatically that's, so this becomes this becomes this plus this. The value, okay, so I think it's fine now. Yeah, 70, 80, yeah, yeah. So I think we're good. So we really do not need this total, right? Okay. So for this, Obi made the first acquisition in YP on the 15th of January 2000, and that is 60,000. Okay, the percentage, total number of equity share capital of the subsidiary, that's YP, is 1 million, and they acquire 60,000. That's just 60%. Then on the 15th of January 2001, they acquired another 2,400 units of shares. So that gave them 24%. Okay, cumulatively, that's 30%. Another 150, 15%, 45 cumulatively, 250, 25, 70 cumulatively, then 100, 10, 80 cumulatively. So these are the balance of YP PLC reserves at the date of acquisition. All right. So what we have to do here is that since the parent has an intention to gain control, we'll start computing pre-acquisition reserves. Okay, we will start computing pre-acquisition reserves that will be used to determine the goodwill on acquisition. from the moment the percentage holdings is 20% or more. So you can see that the cumulative percentage holdings here is 30%. So you can see we have 6% here. If we have 6% plus additional 24% that was acquired, okay, that gave you what? 30%. Okay, so what it then means is that our pre-acquisition reserves becomes, so they are not going to recognize it here because that is just 60%. It's not even up to 20%. Since there's an intention to gain control, the moment it is 30% cumulatively. So what do? We pick this 30%, then we multiply it by the reserves of YP at that date. So we multiply by the reserves at that date. So that's what we get. So again, so what you can do is highlight all of this and then apply it. So we start applying it. So 45% times this times this, okay, and then this times this. So that gives us our pre-acquisition reserves. So now, in a case where there is no intention to gain control, we said that if there's no intention to gain control, control will eventually be gained when the parent company acquired more than 50% of the ordinary share capital of the subsidiary. All right. So it's still a similar table that we are going to apply here. So if you have this inside here, all right, you have this inside here. So basically what you're going to do is to do the computation. So for this, we are not going to calculate pre-acquisition reserves at the date of the first acquisition. At the date of the second acquisition, we are still not going to calculate pre-acquisition reserves. At the date of the third acquisitions, we now have 45%. We are still not going to calculate. At the date of the 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth acquisition, we now have what? 70%. So here we are going to calculate pre-acquisition reserves. Okay, so that will be 70% times the reserves at the date of acquisition, which is this. That's 117. Of course, we're going to calculate here as well. So you copy the formula here and then you paste here. So that gives you 145. That gives you 145. So that is that. So you're going to sum up the total. Okay, you're going to have the total here. Same thing for the other table. Okay, and take this one down. So, all right. Now, oh, sorry, there is a little error. Now, the percentage you're going to apply here will not be on this 70%. Remember, if this 80%, remember that 80% is cumulative. So if you are doing it on 80%, that's double counting. So because you're also counting the 70% with it. So please, the percentage has to be on 10%. Okay. So what we do is to pick 10% times this. Okay. So it's not going to be on 70 on 80% because 80% includes 70%, and we have used 70% here. So it's going to be on 30%. Okay. So the same thing applies to these as well. So here we have used the cumulative here. Okay, we've used the cumulative here, which has included this 6%. So what it then means is that it's gonna be this 24%, because that's the next figure we are picking. So it's gonna be that 24% times this. Okay, so that gives you 22. That gives you 22,080. Okay, that's okay. So I think we are still fine there. So this is the 30% times this, okay? So 27,600. So I think we are still fine because we are not considering this at all. Yeah, sorry. So we are not considering this at all. So we are picking 26,700. So that's fine. So it's in the second one that will now have to make reference to the 15%. So make reference to the 15%. And in the third one, we make reference to the 25%. And the last one, we make reference to the 10%. So please, let's take cognizance of this correction. So make reference to the 10% times this. Okay, so it's only the first cumulative. So this first cumulative figure that we pick. This first cumulative figure made it to be more than 20%, maybe to be 20% and above. So, and then because the parent company has intention to gain control, so we pick it from here. All right. So once we pick it from here, we apply the 30% to the reserves at the date of acquisition to get the pre-acquisition reserves. So now we get the total of all of this, and that gives you 107,900. So what it then means is that it is this 107,900 that we are going to use to determine the goodwill on acquisition. All right, so thank you very much for your time. So just a quick recap on what we have done here. So what we have discussed here is piecemeal acquisition in piece what? In piecemeal. So we said for this acquisition in piecemeal, two things are involved. It is either that the parent company intend, okay? So the parent company intend to gain control. Are you getting me? Or does not intend. So these are the two situations. Does not intend to what? To gain control. So if they intend to gain control, okay, the moment you have the percentage holdings, if the percentage holdings is greater than, if it is greater than or equal to 20%, okay, you start calculating pre-acquisition reserves. You start calculating pre-acquisition reserves, okay? But if they do not intend to gain control, and eventually as they are making piecemeal acquisition, they now exceeded 50%. You also start calculating what? Pre-acquisition reserves. So this is the golden rule, all right? So what then we also do is for the intention to gain control, when the percentage holdings is 20% and above, At that point is when you start calculating pre-acquisition reserve. So what it then means is that the cumulative holdings, okay, up to the point where it is 20%, you are going to apply their cumulative holdings, that cumulative holdings percentage. So you apply that cumulative holdings percentage on the reserves at the date of acquisition of the subsidiary. So you apply the cumulative holdings percentage. So subsequently, it is only the percentage that is acquired, that percentage holdings, not the cumulative anymore. So that you won't be doing double counting. So it is only the percentage that is acquired that you apply on the acquisition reserves or the reserves at the date of acquisition. Same thing applies for intention not to gain control. So if there's an intention not to gain control and the parent company eventually acquired more than 50% of the equity share capital of the subsidiary, you will immediately start calculating pre-acquisition reserves. It is that pre-acquisition reserves we will use to determine your goodwill on acquisition. Okay, so the cumulative percentage holdings is what you are going to apply on the reserves at the date of acquisition of the subsidiary. Then subsequently, it is the portion that is now acquired that you will apply. So this is the golden rule, or they are the golden rule for piecemeal acquisition. Okay, so in the subsequent classes we're going to look at a more detailed question on piecemeal acquisition. All right, thank you. I'll see you in the next class.